I find that for me, the number thing wasn't really scary, but attaching it, so to speak, to my value was a little bit scary to speak out loud, right? So the more I could just talk those numbers out loud and practice saying them out loud, even if it was in to myself, whether it was in a peer-to-peer conversation where I just practiced with other coaches to say them out loud, then when the time comes with the client, you don't get that fear. It's just so much more natural because you've been saying these numbers forever.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business.
Okay, Kirsten, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, this is so fun. And we're in person, in real life.
In real life, if you are not watching this on YouTube, you might want to pop on over there because we're here in the RHD studio. You're my guinea pig because I might do more in-person interviews in the coming year. And so we're still trying to figure out our setup, but this is what we had, so this is where we started.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's actually, it's comfortable and well lit. I think it's really fun to have these conversations in person. Let's get in front of people again. It's
totally.
great.
And you and I met on Zoom through one of our coaching programs, through the Hannah Khan program that I've been doing, those morning calls. Actually, we didn't even see each other's faces, I don't think. It was just through names. I don't even know how that happened. Then I moved to Instagram and they were like, let's go for a walk. And so we started hanging out in real life. And
that's right.
Here we are today now, recording the podcast.
Well, that's it. I was saying to you before, building relationships, which we're probably going to talk a little bit about today. It's really
and if you're also watching on YouTube, this could be edited out. So
it will be edited out.
There's my husband, Chris.
Sorry.
Actually, the YouTube is the unedited version. We call it
whatever.
Unscripted.
Unscripted.
By design. Unscripted. Anyhow, Abby, my podcast editor, if you're listening, you can cut this part out. And we're back.
So relationship building really I found to be a really big challenge during the pandemic. And I really believe that when we are in person, in real life, that whole process can be accelerated. And so probably no surprise that we're now here having a conversation face to face after getting to know each other, walking outside and enjoying the nature, enjoying fall.
Yeah, and so, before we dive too deep into everything today, can you just introduce yourself to our listeners today? Just give them a quick Cliff's Notes, depends where you're from, of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Kirsten Schmidtke. I'm a leadership and sales coach, and I work with individuals and organizations to help them to accelerate their path to success, whatever that looks like as defined by them. We work together to get really clear on their goals and then really clear on the systems, the processes, and the actions that are going to get them there. Without going too far back into my past, what I can share is I'm a very left and right brain type of person, very creative, but also really love numbers. And so I believe when I work with my clients, we get to really bridge both sides, get really clear on what might be getting in the way from a mindset perspective, but always support clients on the strategy, the execution, and the actions they can take to get there faster, to get to those goals faster.
We want to get there fast. We do. Designers, women, humans are typically a little bit impatient. I think especially as an entrepreneur, right? As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're get me to $1 million or get me to 100,000. How can we get there? And so I really want to dive into this topic today with you because sales is definitely an area that I struggled with early in my career, and I know a lot of designers do too.
Yeah.
Because there's this idea that we don't want to feel salesy. We don't like selling our services or our products because it feels like we are putting ourselves on the line and it's super visible. And we want our art or our designs to speak for themselves. And the reality is, That's not how people find you. I always say it's not enough to be a great designer. You need people to know who you are. And then once they know who you are, how do you turn them into someone who's interested to an actually paying client? And so I want to dive into this conversation today. Have you seen mindset? Like, what I'm saying here is this, I think I'm talking about mindset in its purest form of, I'm afraid, I don't feel comfortable saying to you, this is my service, will you buy it? Mm-hmm. That mindset piece, I think, I know has held me back, and I see it in other designers. Have you seen that in your career? We didn't really get into your career, but I would like to go there a little bit, because I think your career is really interesting. Did that ever show its face in your career, this idea of like, I don't know if I can, if I should, if I will, if I want to, or do you see it with your clients?
Well, all of the above. I mean, I think you hit on something right off the bat. Like, no one wants to be the best kept secret.
That's it.
Right? We want people to be aware of who we are and what we're doing and what we're up to. And it's really a disservice to people if they don't know, because they don't know that we're out there, that we can help them in a meaningful and impactful way. And that is kind of I guess a cornerstone of sales, is really understanding that you are being of service when you are working with a client, when you are engaging them in a conversation to move them like through the sales cycle. Like it's coming from that place of service that you are able to help them, I don't know, insert whatever challenge, pain, problem that they're facing. And I think from a mindset perspective, what I find with my clients, but also with myself, I'm working on my mindset constantly every day as well, is staying true and holding that belief that what your service is, whatever you're bringing to the table, like holding that belief that you have value to offer, and really believing truly in the value that you have to make a difference, to bring maybe joy to someone's life, to improve their way of living, to, I don't know, just make the world even, let's go there, like a better place. Like just really connecting to that belief. I think that is the very first part of the mindset part of sales, that if we don't believe in our value, believe in what we do, we can't transfer that belief to someone else. And I mean, we could even say sales is as simple as that, a transfer of belief.
Whoa, I like that. What I like that you said that resonated with me is this idea that it's a sort like we're offering a service. Obviously, this, when I say it out loud, it sounds stupid. But I'm like, this is an aha. We are delivering a service that is adding value, it is helping someone. Mm-hmm. So as a designer, you are solving problems and pain points for your client who's desperately needing your services. But what's happening is, what I'm hearing you say is, we get caught up in our minds and in our heads, and we hold ourselves back from really paying attention to those facts. Mm-hmm. The facts are, I have what you need to make your problem go away. And we need to maybe be looking at our service a little bit more like that, and that's gonna help us make those sales and make it easier to do that.
Well, and one way, or one really simple, let's say, tool that you can take away from today too, is to almost take yourself a little bit out of the equation, and this is gonna sound, I know you're gonna be like, this doesn't make this, might not make sense right away, but selling is not about you. Like, sales is not about you, it's actually about them. It's actually about the client. Like, it's about where the client's stuck. What's keeping the client up at night? What is the client maybe dreaming about at night that you could make happen for them? The client, is maybe stuck in how are they gonna make this change or transformation or, renovation happen, and you could be the who that solves that problem. So as soon as we take a step back and go, wait, it's not about me. It's not me standing up here and doing some, song and dance to get their attention that they must buy from me. It's actually about me stepping into their world, getting curious about what keeps them up, what do they want, what gets them excited and going. All of a sudden, that also takes, some of the pressure off of us, and we can be in that mindset of, ooh, yes, I've got this value, and I really believe I've done all these amazing things. I can bring this stuff to the table. but it's actually not about me, it's about them. And as soon as we put that energy and focus on them, it can take a little bit of the pressure off of that focus on I must sell myself.
So it's like we need to get clarity on what it is that we're offering or what it is, the problems that we solve. Like, how do we, as a designer, as a business owner, how do you get that clarity of, okay, yes, that is my client, and here's how I solve the problem? Because everybody listening is like, well, I'm a designer, obviously I make their home beautiful, it's clear. But is that what we're talking about here?
Great question. I would challenge people to go a step deeper, or maybe 3 levels deeper. Okay, so yeah, let me take just a quick step back. So what can happen sometimes in selling is we can get really focused on the symptoms, right? Like I know this is gonna sound like a parallel that may have not come up before, but almost think of like a doctor diagnosing a problem, right? Like they don't want, we hope that our doctor is not gonna just look at the symptoms and give us like a, I don't know, arching, decision on how they can treat us. We're hoping that they're going to try and get to the cause, right? Try to really understand what is under the surface. And so when we're in a sales process or we're having conversations and wanting to help to close or move the opportunity towards, a client signing on or committing to work with us, we really want to ask questions to get curious to that level of depth to understand what that actual cause is that's causing maybe a problem, or maybe not even a problem, maybe just causing them to even have a conversation with you. Maybe there's something that's shifted in their life that they are really maybe excited about. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe maybe they bought a new home and they're just really excited to bring their idea of a vision to life. But rather than just staying at kind of that face value of kind of the symptoms or what you're seeing on the surface, like how can you get deeper? Because if we can get deeper into how the client's feeling, how the client wants to feel, then you can start to really articulate how you can support and serve and help them in a way that resonates and like takes the pressure off of them, and then it's just a no-brainer. If you can make their dreams come true, if you can solve that problem that's keeping them up at night. So absolutely, like I encourage clients to always take the conversation, like it's kind of like the 3-question rule, so to speak. Like, can you ask 3 more questions? And they can be simple. We do want to, keep them open. Like, why, how do you want to feel? What does that look like for you? What does maybe that mean to you, right? Kind of opening, but see if you can take that as a tool too. Like, ask 3 more questions to see if you can really get to the root of maybe why they're having the conversation with you, because then you can really connect to what, again, problem they're wanting to solve or what idea they want to bring to life, and see if that what you have to offer is a match to that, and it also increases your close rate as well.
So you said something that maybe to you seems like everybody knows it.
Okay.
But you were like something like, oh, the 3 questions, And I'm like, no, I don't know. But as you're talking, I'm realizing good salespeople ask a lot of freaking questions. They do, right?
Yeah.
Like someone's trying to sell, and like sometimes they're better at it than other times, but someone gets you on the phone and then you can't get off because they just keep asking you those freaking questions.
Mm.
So for designers listening, if you're like me and you're like, oh, ask questions. Like, I know it sounds super rudimentary to someone like yourself, but is that the secret to landing clients, is like asking more questions?
This is going to be bold, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, like I just cracked the code. I'm like, oh my God, how did I not know this?
Because if we're leaning into our curiosity and we're asking more questions, again, you're getting into their world, right? Like, I mean, think about the last time you received an email with like, oh my gosh, these are 20 million things that I can, offer to solve your pain problem. You're like, I can't even go there. But if you knew what was keeping me up at night and you said like, I can help take that pain away, like, yeah, I would look at the price, but I'm probably not going to think so much about the price because I'm like, no, this person can solve my problem. Like, let's go. Absolutely, like more questions, more curiosity is going to get you into their world. You're going to build that relationship faster, and then you're going to be able to align your offer, and that really your offer being the solution to their problem much faster because you know that much more about them. And the reason I say 3 questions too is because we tend to we want to feel like safe and comfortable. And when we ask one question deeper and we are starting to connect to that emotional part of where the client is, and if we can really tap into that, then you're connecting to something really, really, really real.
Okay, I'm smiling because I'm laughing because I feel like you've asked me questions in like DMs or like in a text. You're like, tell me why do you feel this way, Rebecca? I'm like, oh wow, well, Kirsten, I hadn't thought of that. Like I'm seeing it. It's so you obviously come by naturally, and you just generally are an inquisitive person asking questions. But okay, putting you on the spot. What are these questions?
Oh yeah, I knew you were going to ask that.
What should we ask?
I think the first question that I love to ask as a coach, is just even asking the client, like, what do they want? Like, what are you dreaming of? Like, what brings you to the conversation? What is something just to kind of open them up to share more? Like, I know this idea of asking more questions right now might sound a little bit overwhelming, like I don't know what to ask, what do I say? But the truth is, everyone loves to talk about themselves. Like, we love to share what we're up to. We love to share our desires and what we're excited about and what we're passionate about. It's just a lot of people don't get asked those questions. So I think you'll find by just starting with a question as simple as, what brings you to like the conversation, or what do you want, or what would you like love to see, like this could really just, you never know, that could absolutely lead to like 10-20 minutes of conversation. So I would start there. Another thing I love to ask people is like, how do you want to feel, or how do you want to like experience this work together? Because in that too, you can get a lot of information from somebody about kind of what their expectations are, what their vision maybe for a project or working together are. And in all of this, you're also starting to kind of filter through like, okay, how, like, is my offer aligned, and can I support them? So starting with asking them just like really share, like, what do you want, or what are you envisioning, or something to kind of open up their imagination, and then trying to connect to their emotion. Like, what do you want to feel, or what do you want to experience? And another question that I really like to ask too is like, what would success look like for you, right? Or what would, like, maybe the magic wand question even. Like, you could,
Tell everybody that question, because not everyone listening knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, no.
Talking about, but let's just
For sure. I love the magic wand question. And really, really simple, yet really, really powerful. So just even imagine yourself, like, if you had a magic wand, right? What would you create, or what would you make happen, or what would you see? So just asking that question, again, the person is going to come to the table, like they've got
desires.
Yeah, they've got desires, they've got ideas, they've got inspiration probably too, that maybe probably no one's ever asked them those questions. So I absolutely would start with those three as a way to get the conversation started. And if you really want to take your question asking to the next level, it really starts with your listening. And this is something that we didn't talk a lot about my career, which was in sales, but for a long time I really spent time trying to master the art of like pitching or having the agenda and like sharing what I was trained on to sell, when I actually wasn't really listening to what the client was saying. So I was always in my head about, okay, what's the next question I'm going to ask? What's the next question I'm going to ask? But if you really listen to what the client's saying, you can draw that question from what they're sharing if you're listening to them and not letting kind of your own narrative and thinking take over. And the key to doing that, when you feel stuck and you're like, I don't know what the question is, you can just simply say, tell me more about that.
Very interesting. Tell me more. I forgot what I was going to say. Keep going. I'll reference my notes. But that's a really good point, Kirsten, is like so many of us, I mean, I catch myself doing this a lot as a podcaster, because it's a lot of listening, a lot less talking, believe it or not, when I'm interviewing. Obviously, when it's a solo, I get to do all the talking. I did a few of those already today. But is this idea that more often than not, and we talked about this actually in the calls with Hannah, you're not listening. We're not listening to each other. We're actually waiting for our turn to speak.
Yeah.
And clients can pick up on that. My question for you would be, I love this idea, I love these questions. Would these be the type of questions that you would want to have in your first encounter with the client? So what I advise designers to do, which is my process, is always have a discovery call.
Mhm.
Like have an initial phone call before you go to their house, before they hire you for a consultation, because you want to, like you said, we want to kind of filter through and assess. Because as you're talking, I was thinking, oh, this would be great at a consultation, and I thought, wait, it should probably be at the very beginning of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, these are the questions for your discovery call. This, like, you can take this and create your own, you can call it a script to just like to support you. I think a script is, when people think sales script, they think that they're like reading like a dialogue that's been written out like a telemarketer. Yeah, exactly. But really, if you're creating, like, every sales script's going to be unique to the person's like the business, right? And so if you've got your own business, you know what those questions, even if you want to take or adapt what I just shared, that can still be your sales script, right? And the discovery, the more you can learn in a discovery call, which again requires you to listen and ask good questions. So yes, you may not talk very much, because just a discovery call, again, it's not about you. It's not about you, it's about them. Like, you're not pitching at the beginning of the sales cycle. We're looking to understand more about them to see, well, they probably want to see if we're a fit, but we really want to see if we're a fit before we even spend any more time in the sales cycle. And so the more questions that you can ask, the more information that you can gather. I absolutely would encourage people to use these questions as part of their discovery call. And if it helps and supports you, think about it as a sales script. Like, have those kind of questions that you always use or you can leverage, and you'll find the more that you kind of put those reps in and practice, they'll feel more natural, and you'll likely come up with your own kind of versions of them that still get you to the same result, which is gathering as much information about the client as you can, to also, like, again, this information input kind of takes you from the discovery call. The purpose is also to qualify, like, the next part of the sales stage, right, is to qualify the client.
Yeah.
So the more information you're gathering, you're also able to take that away and essentially put them through your qualification filter, right? So that you know if it makes sense to continue to move forward or maybe take a different action.
This feels like one giant ad for my discovery call script, which is free, by the way. So I do have a discovery call script for designers.
Amazing.
You guys can download it at rebecca.com/discovery. It's free, but it is called a script, but you're right. It's a guide. What I give designers is a guide to take, and then you can add in what Kirsten's saying today and like tweak it and make it your own. It's making sure you don't forget things. And for me, a script, the way I treat the discovery call script is I want to have it in front of me so that I don't kind of get caught up into my own ways of doing things, which is now I'm just going to start talking about myself and doing projects, and then I hang up. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't ask this. I didn't ask how did they hear about us. I didn't ask what their timeline was, or any pertinent questions. So I agree, that's so important to have a sort of a guide. It's really more of a guide than it is a script.
Yeah.
But the one question I have as it pertains to that is, we're asking these questions. So great, first we're asking these questions. How much does our offer have to do with it? Like, at what point does that matter? Because I know a lot of designers just want to get on the phone and be like, okay, here's how I work.
Mm-hmm.
So we do hourly, and it's $250 an hour. Is that okay? Because we're so concerned about the money. We can talk about that in a minute. But how important is it for us to talk about our offer, or figure out like what to offer? Like, maybe one client wants one thing and another client wants another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point do we determine, okay, now's the time to talk about my service?
Yeah. Well, a discovery call is exactly that. Is to discover the client, to discover where they are, discover where they want to go. Now, I want to say the discovery call not to talk about pricing, but I think this is going to kind of depend on the size and scale of your business. Because some people, if you have enough work and you've got maybe a wait list and you've got clients in the pipeline, like, you're going to want to find out in the discovery call if their budget is in line with what you have to offer. Now, that being said, if you're a little bit earlier in maybe building your book of business, I encourage people to keep the pricing actually off the table in the discovery call.
Interesting. Controversial. Because I always say you need to talk about the money up ago, maybe like midway into growing my business, where I would get to the consultation and they were like, well, if we'd known, or I sent a proposal, they're like, well, if we'd known it was going to be this much money, we never would have had you come to our house.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, oh no, I need to pre-qualify better. But this is interesting. Go on. I like having differing opinions.
Yes. Okay. Well, one way to also get ahead of that is asking the question, like, do you have a budget for this project?
No client ever
says yes.
knows how to answer that.
Yeah. And I mean, no client, I'll tell you right now, in the technology industry, in the coaching industry, like, no, you're right. Very rarely people have an answer to that question. Now, if they're getting on a call with you, I'd imagine that they've thought about that this is going to cost money. Like they're there.
It's not free. They know it's not free.
Yes, they know it's not free. Okay, so discovery call, we're gonna keep it nice and tight and short, because let's start there. We make it 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes and you're on and off the call. So let's because calls are super, super effective, but we also don't want to stretch and allow, okay, I'm gonna take one giant step back. And how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if you are really, really effective in your discovery call, you're also already creating some like container and like standards around how you operate, right?
Yes, guys, did you hear that? Stop. That's so good. It's what I talk about all the time. It's like set that expectation from the beginning, from the get-go. You are in charge, not the other way around.
Absolutely. So now we're stepping like a little bit into like the leadership aspect, right? Like you as the expert, again, go back to the beginning of this conversation, you believe in the value that you have, which means I've only got 30 minutes to see if this is a fit. You're not going to say that to the client, but you're channeling that belief and this value you have. You need to lead the client because they have no clue. Like you said, they have no idea what this costs. So they have no clue about the world that you're in. So you need to lead the conversation for sure in the discovery call and set expectations right off the bat, what they can expect. Now, again, depending probably on the stage of your business, I've found when people are really newer, you might still be also experimenting a little bit in the background with your pricing. And so what I found is when you get a discovery call, 30 minutes, you can say, as a next step, I would love to take the information that you shared with me today and come back to you and provide an idea of what it would look like to work together. Now, I'm gonna go back as you said, I say money up front, and then you were like, because then I send a proposal and they say it's too expensive. So my question to you though is, do you present the proposal on a call or do you just send a proposal?
So there's one more step.
Okay.
I do a discovery call, and from there I schedule and book a paid consultation.
Okay.
Which is a 2-hour on-site meeting. After that 2-hour on-site, I do present a proposal to them, and I do what's called what I call a circle back call. I do it on Zoom. Some people do it in person.
Okay.
I used to just send it into the ether, and I would get quick.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So I don't think a call, like if you're going to invest $60,000 with a design firm, I don't feel like a phone call is enough, at least not for me.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, okay, they need to pay for me to go to their house because I'm not going for free because those are the tire kickers and they never hire me.
Yeah. And
so if they're willing to pay, my consultation fee is $750 plus tax, HST in the province of Ontario. If they're willing to come do that, then that already is pre-qualifying them and making them more committed.
Yeah.
Then I really ask more questions, get a sense of the scope of work, because what we do is very contingent on what walls are we moving, which room are we decorating, how much millwork do you need, are we going to dig up the basement, let me give you my thoughts and my feedback, and then I will put together a detailed, customized proposal on how we work together.
Okay, and then that you would deliver in?
That I like to deliver on Zoom.
On Zoom, perfect. Okay, love it. I was, on the topic of proposals, I hope you're all presenting your proposals on a call or face-to-face. I was talking to a client about proposals. She's like, I just send them. And I was like, hey, well, what's your close rate? Or like, what is well, it's pretty low, right? And this is where like the mindset piece comes in, because when we can just send our proposals, it's like out of sight, out of mind. It's like, you're kind of disconnecting from that belief in the value, where if you're standing, like having a conversation with the proposal in front of you, you are standing firmly in the belief that what you've put in there, like in the proposal, the number, all of it is aligned to the value that you provide. So I feel it's also a mindset just present proposals in person, not to send them into ether. So I love that that's part of your process. I think that's really important.
I don't think that's the majority of the people listening today.
Okay.
I think there's a few of you listening who are like, yeah, I know that, or yeah, Rebecca, you told me, so I do it. But there's a lot of designers listening who do not do that and who are just sending the email because it feels like less friction, less confrontation, it's less nerve-wracking, but you're also less likely, I guess, to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage you to ask yourself, like, what would you need to believe to be true that having a conversation for the proposal would be a better process, better use of your time? Because chances are, I have a feeling people listening are ambitious and are excited about what they're doing. I don't think they're sending proposals because they're lazy. I think proposals are often sent because there's something blocking our thinking. There's something that's saying, oh, the client's going to say no anyway, or I charge too much money, so I'm just going to send it. Like, you've already kind of cut yourself off.
I'm just going to send it and hope that they say yes.
Yeah. So what would you need to believe to be true? So I would check in, like, what are you believing is true? You might be believing, like, I'm just going to kind of want to wish in a prayer, versus what would I need to believe to be true? Okay, well, I would need to believe that, again, I'm actually, like, my rate is really aligned to the value I provide. I go above and beyond for clients, and, like, my clients say yes, where do I sign, right? And then you set up a proposal with that thinking, conversation with that line of thinking, and your close rate will absolutely go up.
Close rate.
I know we got a little bit off.
I know, that's okay. This is super valuable. Everybody listening's like, shoot, I wish I wasn't driving right now. I want to take notes. Can you just also walk us through what is a close rate?
Yes. So one thing that I think is really forgotten about, I guess, let's just say, for small business owners is having some kind of metrics and measurements, right? Sometimes you can get really excited about the different dashboards that, different maybe social media platforms or whatever provide us. But it's also good for us to know, like, is our effort leading to what we want? Which I'm guessing, if you're listening to this, you want more revenue. If we're talking about sales, it's because we want to see more revenue coming into our business. So what a close rate is when we look at the amount of opportunities or proposals we've put on the table versus the amount that have actually led to a signature, to a client saying yes, a client paying an invoice, right? So maybe you send 12 proposals a year, one a month, and 6 people sign, so your close rate would be 50%. There's also a lot of debate on what a good close rate looks like, right? Everybody's probably sitting going, oh, I have to get to 100%, right? Isn't 100% close rate the goal? I would argue no. I don't think 100% close rate is the goal. I think that if you're closing 100% of your clients, you need to raise your rates.
Yes. Did you hear that? Say that again. Say that again. I want everybody to hear that. Say that again.
So if you are closing 100% of your clients, so that means every proposal you're sending, people are signing off and saying yes, it's time to raise your rates. You want your close rate to be closer to 30-40%.
Oh, I like this. Ooh, I like that you're giving us numbers. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just checking on the audio. There might be a glitch, but that's okay. We got double backup recordings happening. I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't record in the right place. We're good. Abby will fix everything. I love that you're giving us a percentage. People always ask.
Yeah.
So, like, actually, that sounds a lot lower than I would expect. But that's actually really refreshing to hear. Yeah, well, and I don't know, I think the 30-40% close rate, it gives you the opportunity to continue to grow and expand, and I mean, ultimately, we want to be raising our rates year over year. Like, okay, also, yes, you should be raising your rates year over year, whether it's even just 5% for inflation or however, you want to look at it. That being said, don't forget that every year you're in business, like, even just by listening to this podcast, you're investing in yourself. You're growing your skill set. You're delivering an even higher value to the client. So you should always be assessing your rates, I believe, year over year. And that, 30 to 40% close rate. So again, looking at deals like on the table versus deals signed or proposals signed. It gives you an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more
critical or analytical, so that you can almost give yourself permission too to say, oh yeah, I need to up the ante.
So for those who don't want to do the math, that means for every 10 proposals you send out,
Yes.
we're really hoping that 3 to 4 of them turn into projects.
Yeah.
And I think that the designers listening are going to feel like a huge weight's been lifted off their shoulder.
Yeah.
Because we can be so hard on ourselves when we put out a proposal. Why didn't they pick me? What's going on? Why not? Why this? So that is really just wonderful math. I love math now.
Yeah. Well, and I would encourage, if you do get stuck in that thinking of like, why didn't they pick me? Why didn't they sign? This is also the power of having that proposal conversation over a Zoom meeting too, right? Like, if you really want to close hard versus close soft, one of the questions that I've asked in the past is like, have I left you with any questions that would keep you from saying yes?
Stop, say that again, that's so good. Everybody write that down. I'm gonna re-listen to this so I can write it down.
Okay, so when you're at the end, you've gone through the entire proposal, you just ask them like, have I left you with any questions that would keep you from saying yes?
So good.
Okay, because then now we might get into objection handling, which we'll probably not have time to talk about today. But now you're getting into like really understanding why it's not 100% yes right now. And I mean, again, our 30-40% mark, we're hoping 4 times out of 10 people are going to, right, are gonna say, yeah, I'm in, where do I sign? But what I will offer, again, probably not a lot of time to get into objection handling, but if you do find people start to ask questions, those are nuggets, okay? So if people end up saying no, okay, but when you ask that closed question, or did I leave you, like, what are any questions I can answer that would, any questions that are going to keep you from saying yes, if you can start to record them or keep track of them, or at least have a note about them, chances are that that's something that you want to address actually earlier in your sales cycle. Because if there's an objection coming up, it's because we missed something. If there's an objection, we've missed something earlier on in the conversation. So even though we may not get into like how to handle objections, that could be gold for you going forward, to help support, to improve your sales conversations. If you just start to gather what people are sharing as feedback with you, or what's keeping them from saying yes in the moment, so that you can maybe tweak or pivot or do something differently next time.
So good, so good. What if they say you're too expensive?
That's the best.
I mean, not that it's ever happened.
Well, I mean, if you want to be like, okay, so some of this might be, really new and really uncomfortable, which is also really okay, right? But you could simply ask, the first question that came to my mind was, compared to what?
Oh God, would you ask that? Maybe not with attitude.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely delivery matters here, but like
Compared to your lawyer? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, and compared to, I don't know, compared to the cost of their house, it's probably, their house would cost more than your quote to renovate. Like, you've lived this home, like, do you want to enjoy being in this home?
Kirsten, I feel like that takes balls to ask that question.
That is, I was gonna say, I knew this was good. I was gonna say, it's the first question that comes to mind. Well, and if you, yes, so you could say like, and I guess I'm also thinking from that might also uncover if they're getting multiple quotes too, right? If you ask like compared to like, you could, so it depends, yes, it depends how bold you want to be. So you could ask them compared to what. You could also ask them like, did you have a budget in mind? Like, if they didn't answer that question earlier, again, see objections. We were hoping we get that information earlier in the sales conversation, but you could say like, did you have a budget in mind, or was there a place that you felt comfortable starting, right? Because maybe it's even simply working backwards. I know that some projects you're not gonna be able to like parse out into parts, but maybe it's working backwards or coming up with a plan. What I do find is often it's not money.
Right.
Right? Like, is it too expensive, or is something else actually holding them back from committing? Definitely this comes up in coaching. People get a little bit, if I'm gonna commit to coaching, then I actually have to do the thing I said I was gonna do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Or make the change. Yeah, exactly. Or make the change, or put in the effort, or put in the work, or go after that really bold, audacious goal that I haven't told anybody yet. Like, right? So there's the accountability part. You know, you and the audience would know better than me what may come up for somebody that's looking for design services. But it could be asking them, you know, again, getting curious and asking them a question of like, you know, what other priorities you have right now, or what, you know, maybe asking to understand a little bit, is it the cost, or did they just get worried about where, you know, they're gonna keep their dog like home, like where they're gonna put their dog during renovations, or maybe, you know what I mean, like something else might have come up in their brain that actually doesn't have anything to do with money.
I love that. And even if it does have to do with money, it's interesting. I've been working with a few one-on-one clients this year, helping designers with their business. And there was this one designer I was working with, we had a call, I think it was just last week. And she was saying how, I was helping her with a proposal, and she proposed a fee of, I don't know, it was like $35,000 for the design, for the scope that this family wanted. And they're like, no, it's too expensive. And that there was no further conversation. Then, a week or so later, the client came back and said, you know, we really do want to work with you. Is there any way you can find to work with us? Mm-hmm. And so that's when she was able to say, well, like, absolutely, let's have a conversation. And I got on a call, and the designer asked the woman or whoever was in charge, ma'am, and said, you know, like, how much did you budget for a designer? Like, how much were you prepared? Because initially when she'd asked that question, they were mum. They didn't say anything. And they said, well, actually, we're really hoping, you know, to only spend about $20,000. She's like, well, that's great. Now, that's a number I can work with. Let me look at the scope and see where we can trim it, because we're not negotiating to do the same thing for less money, everybody. So she's like, let me see where I can, you know, tweak the scope. And they came to an agreement on a lesser scope, so prioritizing what the homeowner really wanted to prioritize, and so she still got the job.
I love what you just said at the end there, but they came to an agreement. I think that really has power when you are presenting the proposal that could help somebody if they do get into the question, the objection of like, oh, it's too expensive, right? If you start the conversation, the proposal conversation, with, you know, the purpose of this call is to come to an agreement on how we can work with you or make your dreams come true or make this project happen, you've also kind of created some space for the client to go, oh, this isn't a hard, fast number. Mm-hmm. We're gonna come to an agreement at the end, and maybe that can also help to put them a little bit at ease. So when that number comes up, again, if you can ask, like, your 3 questions might look different, right? But in this case, if it's too expensive, okay, well, yeah, did you have a number in mind? Well, what's your top priority? Like, maybe it's only 1 bathroom, not all the bathrooms right now, right? Like, what would feel good to you? You know, what had you hoped for? And just asking some questions to get a few layers deep, so that, you know, in this case, hopefully they share that number right up front and you don't miss all that time. You can actually get, you know, redo the proposal and get that project going right after that sales call. So I love that language around, right, like the purpose of the proposal is to come to an agreement on how you can work together and how you can help one another. Or not help one another, I guess, but yes, you're helping them as well, to make sure that the client feels that it's aligned for them.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. It's amazing how often we get sort of caught up in our own heads about, well, I put out a number and they didn't want it, so I guess that's the end. It's like, no, let's have an open conversation. And sometimes it is the end, but sometimes there's actually opportunity to find a way to work together.
Yeah.
It's all about the questions, though, guys. If we're taking anything away today, it's ask a lot of freaking questions.
Ask a lot of questions.
I love it. What else do you have for us, woman? I'm loving this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, we're already we're like halfway in, and it's like, oh my God, there's so much information already.
Well, you were just, we're talking about pricing. So, you know, I know that can be a really challenging part of the sales cycle, and I'm kind of going back to that discovery call question too, right? Do we share our pricing? Do we share our numbers in the discovery call? And I think one thing that can be really helpful when you think about your pricing is just really getting clear on what your revenue goal is and kind of what standards are required to help you get there. And, you know, like, it sounds like you have a standard in that your consultation is $750, right? And so that's something that in a discovery call you could say, like, my process starts, like, $750 consultation. Well, I know that these projects can get to be 5-6 figures, but the client at least knows that the next step requires skin in the game, right? So at least we're getting the number part going and not leaving it kind of like open that we work for free. Again, the client's aware of that, but I think setting, knowing what that standard is and sharing that with a client can be really, really helpful and powerful, again, for you to help to kind of qualify if the client is a fit for you. And then the kind of the second part of that is starting to really, get clear on like, what is your revenue goal? Okay, getting clear on your offers, getting clear on the standards, which would include your pricing on, what standards get you to that goal as well, can be really helpful to take a little bit of, I think a little bit of heat off of you, because the numbers are just numbers. I actually heard someone say once, like, practicing your numbers out loud is like the best thing you can do for yourself as a entrepreneur, solopreneur, sole proprietor, whatever, however your business is run, because every time you speak them out loud, they just start to carry less and less weight. And then, to take it one step further, just repeat those numbers as if you're like memorizing someone's telephone number. Like, they're just numbers. It doesn't matter if there's like a dollar sign at the front or what the area code is or whatever it might be, but just getting in the practice of saying 4,500 or 30,000, 500 or whatever it is, that they just kind of start to kind of like, fall off the tip of your tongue versus you feeling they get caught in your throat when the time comes to say pricing out loud. Because that's something that I believe I might have taken for granted moving from a corporate sales career. There's a mindset piece here too, but moving from talking in hundreds of thousands and tens of millions was like normal in the technology industry. So then to move here, like they're just numbers, because when you're talking tens of millions, like it was a little bit arbitrary. It just was what it was. That being said though, again, there's a different weight and connection to those numbers when you're selling your creativity, your strengths, your skill set, right? When you're an entrepreneur or a sole proprietor. So I find that for me, the number thing wasn't really scary, but attaching it, so to speak, to my value was a little bit scary to speak out loud, right?
Really?
So the more I could just talk those numbers out loud and practice saying them out loud, even if it was in to myself, whether it was in a peer-to-peer conversation where I just practiced with other coaches to say them out loud, then when the time comes with the client, you don't get that fear. Like, it's just so much more natural because you've been saying these numbers forever.
I love this. It's the idea that we have our own sticker shock. And so we put together a proposal, and it all makes sense. We looked at the number of hours, and I'm going to have to pay this person, or the square footage, or whatever your pricing model is. But then it's like, whoa, $15,000? I'm just picking a number out of a hat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we think, I'd never pay $15,000 for that. Duh, because you could do it. But we do have our own sticker shock. And sometimes we forget, especially early on in our careers, that the person that we are trying to serve has a different sticker shock.
Yep.
They are at a different level. That's how they can afford a professional service. They are not a student, right? And if that's your audience, then that's a very different situation. But it is that sticker shock, is getting over that. And I love what you say about repeating it. And I'm thinking I should do something like this in Designer's Room, where similar to the sales practice calls that I did this summer, I did the same thing, where every other day I was on the phone with someone and we were practicing our discovery call, so that when the time comes and a real life client comes, it's like old hat. You just say it, and you're present, and you're not stressing over the number or whatever it is that you feel like you need to say, or the questions that you feel comfortable asking.
Yeah.
And the more you practice it, even in the mirror probably, or even just in your car, talking to yourself, saying it out loud and hearing yourself say a big number, $4,500, $12,000, $30,000, or this is our process, or whatever it is hard for you to say. If you practice it, it'll become easier, and then it'll look more natural. It's what you'll probably do a better job selling.
Well, and that's, you're kind of reading my mind too, in that practice helps you to be prepared. Like, there's a preparedness that, again, if we go to the leadership aspect, right? Like, sales requires leadership. You need to lead the client. Like, the client doesn't know what they don't know. That's They want to hire you. They want an expert. They want to pay for that professionalism. They want to pay for someone who like can do it right and do it well, and that they don't have to stress or worry. And when we come across as confident, grounded, aligned to our numbers, like the client feels that. Like they feel that clarity. They feel like you're clear, they're clear. You feel confident, they've got confidence in you, right? You're prepared, they're gonna come to the table prepared. You know, I said before in the discovery call, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So you set the tone in those first 30 minutes with that client. Like I have 30 minutes, we start at 10, we end at 10:30. Now the client knows that like they need to show up to calls on time, they need to be prepared because you're coming prepared, right? So that level of preparedness can be, I guess, almost like amplified and grown if you put in the practice of maybe we've all got devices, we can record ourselves speaking. You can delete it later. But I find hitting record, it puts a little pressure on me that I'm like, oh no, I have to like try and say the thing.
Sorry, like video, like you record yourself on video?
I did that actually for a job interview when I was applying to Amazon Web Services. I'll never forget, I wanted the job. I always say plan A was to get the job at AWS, and plan B was there was no plan B, no plan A. And that's what I did. I practiced my response to why do you want to work here on video.
Good for you, that's clever.
And then would watch it back and then would practice again.
And spoiler alert, you got the job.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I worked there for 5 years. So yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wild. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I, you know, and again, I don't think, no one ever, I didn't have to submit a video or anything. I mean, those interviews obviously were in person. But it did,
So wait, so would you go back and watch the video of yourself? Or
Oh,
did
yeah.
you just record it just to feel like, okay, this is like pressure situation?
both.
So you would
Both.
like watch it, and it would be like when I used to do like film and television like classes when I was at Vancouver Film School. You would film yourself doing an audition, and then you would watch it and like pick yourself apart, and then figure out, okay, well I have a weird tick when I do that, or like let's fix it. Is that what you did?
Well, I did, but my goal was to, like, it was like 30-second pitch, essentially. So they weren't really, really, really long videos. But I would watch it back more for my language. Did I pause, or did that make sense, or is that the word I wanted to say? But definitely just hitting the recording button just, I don't know, puts you into a different level of accountability that now I need to say the thing that I'm gonna say. So yeah, if you don't have someone to practice your sales, numbers with, like, I encourage you just to, hit record on your phone and just practice yourself saying it. And if you don't want to watch yourself back, that's totally cool too. That might be like, the next step or the next level of, but growing that sales, like that strength in your sales skills, but just, speaking it out loud, again, it just gets you into the habit of, and honestly, the pressure I find to record yourself or like to talk to like a peer is actually way more difficult than talking to a client sometimes.
Well, and also if you just do phone calls, like my discovery calls are not Zoom, they're just on the telephone because I find I can focus a lot better. You could then, if that's how you do it, just do a voice memo. Record your voice.
Yep.
Play it back and hear how you say things. Do you say like a lot? Do you pause? Do you say
Yes.
a lot? A lot of us are not aware of how we speak unless we're podcasters and we hear our voices all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Oh my God, I laughed so crazy. That's a great tip. I like that.
Yeah. And you can do that for your 30-second pitch, so to speak, too. Not to put a lot of pressure on the word pitch, but it is really great exercise for you to take away, it's just some feedback from, if someone asks you, like, what are you up to, or what do you do, or what brings you to this event? By the way, my favorite networking question, what brings you here? I love that question versus, I am all about the questions. I didn't really think about that before today.
We're always discovering something new about ourselves.
But that is my favorite question, that, like, what brought you here, right? Because there's not that pressure to identify ourselves with our work. But in any event, I do encourage people to also know that 30-second, what are you up to? And it's always such a simple formula, right? Like, who are you? Like, who do you serve? How do you help? And then how can people work with you or find you? Is kind of the formula I work with clients on. But that's another way to kind of use that like recording camcorder, watch it back method, is just knowing that 30-second, or we call them elevator pitches, or the cocktail line conversation. Or recently with someone, we were talking about, it's the airplane landing pitch, right? When you're like landing in the airplane and all of a sudden you've been on a flight for like 5 hours, but you decide to talk to the person beside you.
It's so true.
Right?
Do that.
What would you tell them? Well, if you know your 30-second pitch, like you never know. That could be your next client, or they could refer you to somebody, or you could, right? But there's always like, it's like the baggage carousel, or it's that like weird waiting time where we're all like, the plane is like getting to the gate, everyone's waiting to get off. Like, you might have a 30-second opportunity to share what you're up to. So.
Okay, I feel like you need to come into designer's room and you need to teach us how to craft a 30-second pitch.
All right.
Because I would also like one.
Okay.
So that's gonna happen. And before we we're starting to get towards the end of our time together, I just want to circle back to this conversation on goals. I love setting goals for my business, both financially and otherwise. But I'm super curious about how much emphasis do you put on setting sales goals? Are sales goals or revenue goals what drives you as a salesperson? Like, is that something to push you forward? So I think I'm speaking for myself anyways, as a designer when I was initially starting my firm. Yeah, I wanted to make money, but I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I never thought sales goals. I definitely never thought about conversion. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about how many people do I need to come through on the phone to go to their house to get to so many projects and what size, and I do all of that now, and I teach a lot of that to designers. But I was so focused on, I want to get in a magazine. I want to get a bigger project. Yes, I want to make more money. I'm wondering if it's better for your self-esteem, for the growth of your business, to be more focused a little bit on the sales goals. I'm just curious your thoughts and experience with that.
Yeah, I love a sales goal. I do love. Okay, I'll tell you this: goals need to be measurable. And actually, I know we'll talk a little bit at the end. Where you can find me, but if you send me a DM on Instagram and just DM me goal, I do have something that can help support you in this process. Just like kind of like a worksheet, something for you to work through. But with goals, it's important that they're not arbitrary, because they need to be measurable so we can also see progress. And I think that that's a big thing that gets missed in business ownership or entrepreneurship when we're building something, is we can get really caught up in like where we aren't. Like we get really
absolutely not. I have no idea what you're talking about.
We can really get caught up in like, but I'm not where I should, right? Or where I thought I would be, or where whatever. But when we have a goal that's measurable, then we can actually measure our progress towards that. And a sales goal absolutely is measurable, right? It gives us a number. It gives us something that we can break down into parts. We can look at it from a monthly perspective. We can look at it from how our offers are maybe kind of balanced to pursuing that goal, what we need to do more of, what we need to do less of. So while a sales goal might sound a little bit overwhelming that you need to commit to a number, I find that it can actually really support in creating clarity in all sorts of other ways in your business to really propel you forward in your decision making, in your budgeting. I know financials can feel like a really big, heavy lift. Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a finance expert. I'm not a CPA by any means, or someone from the finance industry, but just knowing how you're driving cash flow, like having a sales revenue goal, and starting to break that down in a meaningful way. Like I said, it can just provide such clarity on where to spend your energy, where to spend your time, and essentially where to spend your money, right? Where to invest in different parts of your business too.
Yeah, I think that if more designers and creatives, myself included in the early years, thought more about that, we would be very different on how we spent our time. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of creatives, we do love the craft, and so we do get caught up sometimes a little bit in that, and we just want to do that. and then we hold back from maybe hiring in a support role so that it could free us up to have these phone calls, to free us up to do the networking and do the sales. And I think if we were really thinking about sales goals, we're thinking about revenue, it would probably change our behavior in our business. I know it would have for me earlier than it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is for sure a mindset piece around this too, right? Like being open to what is possible for growth in your business, being open to receiving someone saying yes to the $50,000 project when the only project you've done is $5,000 to date. Like there is a mindset piece too required to keep yourself open and available to access those bigger numbers, but creating the space to do that and having, again, at a really high level, understanding how the parts and the cash flow is moving can really empower you to grow your business.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love this. I would love to talk more about sales goals, but we have definitely gone over time. So we will reserve that for another podcast, or we'll have you come to Designer's Room so that you can teach and preach on all the things sales, because I know as designers, it's not our favorite topic. We know it's important, and we know that oftentimes, and I'm generalizing, of course, based on my own experience, that it can feel a little scary, it can feel a little overwhelming, and unfortunately it's necessary. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending where you come from, it's necessary. So thank you for having this conversation today. It's been so nice. So fun to have you here in my studio.
Yeah, this was fun.
Next time we'll have you back, and we're gonna have like a whole setup. It's gonna be way nicer, way fancier. But before we do go today, I would love for you to share a last nugget of wisdom with all of our listeners today.
Oh my gosh. Let's take a pause here.
Dramatic
Nugget
pause.
of wisdom. I mean, I know I dropped all the questions in today's conversation, so what's something that I want to leave you with? I think that, oh my gosh, I knew I'd get stumped on this.
I mean, I did tell you beforehand I was going to ask this, but that's okay, I get it. Under pressure
Oh
moments.
my goodness. Okay, this is good. It's, okay, the business, your sales cycle, your sales process, your sales communication, it's all one big experiment.
Yes, I love that.
There's no right way, there's no wrong way. We're all out there trying to do our best at what we do and serve powerfully in whatever way that means and contribute in a meaningful way. And when we are, sending that proposal to a client, maybe after this call you felt inspired the next time you're gonna do it in person, or you're gonna do it on a Zoom meeting instead of sending it in an email. Like, remember that you're experimenting with your approach, you're experimenting with the language you use, you're experimenting with maybe some of those questions when objections come up. Maybe you're going as far as, asking for referrals, asking for testimonial. Like, anytime you're reaching out to a client, it's always an opportunity to experiment. So that's what I would leave you with is if you see sales as an experiment that you're running in your business all the time, you can actually make it kind of fun.
And it takes the emphasis on having to get it perfect.
Yeah.
Takes the
Yes.
emphasis off. Did I say off? I meant to say off. It takes the emphasis off of the need for perfection, because you will not get it perfect. It doesn't exist.
Exactly.
It's progress all day long. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kirsten, for being here today. It's been so wonderful. Where can everyone find and follow you?
Yeah, so my favorite places to hang out are Instagram and LinkedIn. And both, it's my full name, so Kirsten Schmidtke, lots of vowels, not lots of consonants. But yeah, so at Kirsten Schmidtke, you can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and that's where I like to be. So let's connect. I'd love to meet some of you.
Fantastic. And I will also link all of that in our show notes. Thanks again for being with us here today.
Yes, we did it.
Let's hope that worked, folks. Let's hope that worked.